Welcome to Lipp, Ladies in Production podcast, where we talk about animation and visual effects production through a female lens. On this week's episode, we have
Becca,
Norn,
and then there's me, your host, Krystal. And today we're doing a little series called Art Talk. In this segment, we'll each discuss our creative process. We are talking about creativity and our creative process on this episode. And I mean, I just wanted to go through everybody's creative process, and not just at work, but also at home, and just how you problem solve on the day-to-day. And there's so many ways to approach creativity in this life, and it's not just restricted to someone who has an artist title.
Yeah.
You know, it's for everybody.
For sure.
And I think people should be able to use that muscle more and be empowered to use that muscle more, because it's really, in my opinion, it's the spice of life. It's the whole point.
I love that.
It's a human outlet. I mean,
Absolutely.
that sounds not as poetic as spice of life, but
Well, I mean, I'm going to read a lot from, one of my favorite books of all time to do with creativity is called Big Magic, Creative Living Beyond Fear by Elizabeth Gilbert. And she's the author who did Eat, Pray, Love. And she is fantastic. She did a whole deep dive on creativity. And one of them, it's so good. I think about it. I listen to it several times a year.
I saw her speak once.
Oh, she's awesome. So good.
She was at like an Oprah. I was at some Oprah conference.
Oh. Of course she was. She's always there. I mean, one of the quotes that she has from her book are, the guardians of high culture will try to convince you that the arts belong to a chosen few, but they are wrong, and they are also annoying. We are all the chosen few. We are all makers by design.
Oh, I love that.
That's beautiful.
And I wholeheartedly believe that.
We're supposed to do like a paint and drink, one of these days.
Oh, yeah.
Right. And so I feel like that's, all of us should do that, because it's almost like exercising or walking, right? It
makes you unique.
Yeah.
It's like makes you who you are. And even if you're not your typical artiste, someone who makes art that is to show in a museum or, at an art show or whatever, everyone is creative make something. Everyone has to make something, and whatever you do kind of puts your own flavor on it.
Exactly. So we could start. Becca, what is your creative process? I know that we were talking earlier about you were just like, what am I going to talk about? Because you're not like quote unquote an artist
in a creative field.
But you are in a creative field, because inherently you have to solve problems creatively every day. And so I guess I just wanted to know, like, how, if you were given a prompt, and this is just the most practical way, since we are both analytical people, if you're given a prompt and you have no idea how to approach what that is, how would you go through your data step by step, like break it down?
That's a really good question. I like that question.
Asking the hard questions.
I know. I'm like,
I'm analytical. I know what's
how would I break that down? How would I go about breaking it down?
Like one day, let's say you have one day to do it. How would you go about breaking it down and reaching your goal by the end of the day?
No, I think that's awesome. So if I got a prompt and a problem to solve, I would probably read it over a few times just to let it absorb and get the full meaning of it. And then I would probably break it down into different parts methodically and analytically of how do I visualize this in a smaller component, way. Interestingly, let's say this prompt is, related to the job I do. Interestingly, everything I do, if I'm designing a new system or I'm building a new piece of software or tool, I start with a workflow diagram.
Oh, okay.
that's my approach to everything. And people kind of laugh all the time because I'm always like, I love a good diagram. Like it's kind of how I express my creativity in the technical space. That's how I learn. I'm a visual learner. I have to see it. I have to think of the whole thing. I have to think of how things connect together.
Is it like an infographic that you create for yourself?
Yeah, and I do it. That's the funny thing is I do it for myself to visualize it and see how things connect together. But it ends up being useful to other people because then people use it as a way to know how something is built. Or when I have to pull other resources in or talk to other people about, okay, these are the requirements and other things I need. This is how I'm thinking it would connect, and this is all the different pieces. So it's a great teaching tool as well, or a way to explain, other requirements. And so that's honestly one of my favorite parts because it's like my moment of like drawing in a way,
Yeah.
or just getting my creative juices flowing. Because staring at code is text and it's kind of like you're writing in a way, but that's that first part to break things down. So I start with a workflow diagram.
Are you doing it on like a marker board or piece of paper?
In person, I would. If I was at the office, I would use a marker board. I love whiteboards. I love getting up there, writing ideas down, drawing stuff out, drawing arrows, circles, all the whatever.
Running red lines to the murder suspects.
Yeah.
Crystal's trying to relate back to it with
exactly. But no, I use like virtual drawing tools. So and I can show you guys if you're ever interested. I like love this stuff, but I love to draw different boxes and arrows and whatever, indicating how something works. And for me, I always think about the user experience. So when I'm like, okay, how is this user going to use a system? How are they going to kick off a process that then does X, Y, and Z later down? Like, how are all these things all connected together? Because there has to be something that initiates it, right? Is it user driven? Is it process driven? And so I love like kind of building that out and thinking through like how it would work. And then from there, once I visually see it, I can be like, okay, here's the 5 things, build that out and say, okay, I'm going to attack this way. Or that's how I help other people attack a problem. Like, okay, let's walk through this. Does that make sense? Are we forgetting a part? And it helps to like see it to like really believe it. And, it's more tactile feeling, I guess.
What's the thing that you've done, any recent examples that you have of when you've been completely stumped, and what do you do to get out of that? Or something where it's just like, there's a snag and I just have to like, maybe walk away, come back.
Yeah. So in the case of like a prompt or problem and trying to solve it out, like if I'm designing something out, I'm like, I'm not really sure. I usually try to put in something I think, like just try not to get hung up on the small details sometimes. And so then I'm like, okay, cool. I have 80% of this complete. I then go and reach out to those experts or those other people who can help me answer and fill in the gaps. And so then when I go to those people, I have something to show and be like, okay, this is what I'm thinking, but there's this one part that I'm not a networking engineer. I'm not a systems engineer, but I need experience and expertise there. How would that work? So that's what I do in those situations. But if I'm actually like coding or and I hit a bug and I'm like, I can't figure this out. I haven't really done so recently, but for some time when I was 100% coding all the time, I would, kind of hit these hiccups and be like, okay, how would I do this? I would actually Google is a programmer's best friend. You Google everything. There's always someone out there that has probably solved it or has suggestions. And so
Google's everybody's best friend.
Google's everyone's best friend. And I would say a programmer's best friend in the sense that you get really good at learning how to search. Mm-hmm. So it's interesting because I take it for granted now. I forget. It's like kind of writing queries or filters in a way, like in a programming sense. But I forget how you have to perfect that as a programmer or a developer. Yeah. Like I have these specific things I need to solve and there's these other factors. How do I search for that? So in a way, that's also kind of creative and to construct those things to get the actual solution you need.
Absolutely. And do you also have how much of it do you get peer feedback on?
Yeah, so typically in software development or coding industries, they usually have this thing called code reviews. And so once you've completed something, before you push those things back out into production, usually there's a review process or a peer review process to make sure those things don't break other things, get input from other people. It can be pretty intimidating, especially being a new developer, if you know, getting into the industry. But it's wonderful because you can learn so many things from it. You know, if you have a team that's very open-minded and helpful and just wants people to learn, you can actually learn a lot from seeing how other people code. And that's another really cool thing about coding is it's creative. Everyone has a different flavor. Even though it's code, everyone's going to approach a problem differently. And that's what makes it really fun is like, I can actually be like, oh, that's a really smart way to do it. Or like, no, I would never do it that way. Like, I think my way is better. But what makes it cool is that everyone has a different way to do it. You all come to the same solution, but it's a different approach. So in a way, in that sense too, it's also kind of creative. Yeah.
Awesome. I mean, that's absolutely what I was looking for. Because I mean,
Okay,
legitimately, it is completely creative. And
yeah,
like you said, like taking for granted how well we're able to search on Google,
yeah,
which is a huge thing. And I have to tell the children all of the time, look, you need to search Google in a correct manner.
it's a resource. It's a big resource for
It's a
you.
huge resource. And
Yeah.
imagine trying to also teach that to an older student who hasn't grown up with that. It's a completely different world
No,
for
it's
them.
so-
And they don't know how to query the way we would just automatically know. And I think,
Oh, I need to search for this and this, and I know this exact thing that I'm trying. And usually that's usually the first result because you.
yeah. And
Yeah.
we can, where our eyes are able to filter what is legitimate and what is not legitimate.
Yeah.
Like,
You
oh,
know,
that's
you
a
probably know
dot.
the websites that you are like that are
Yeah.
legitimate. Like for me, it's Stack Overflow. Stack Overflow is kind of like the holy grail of like coding. Like if you ever look up Stack Overflow, it's like there's going to be solutions on there. Like, but if you see some from some random person's blog, sometimes you'll get a good suggestion, but it's not always.
Yeah, you have to really be able to know how to filter that. And I think we
Yeah.
take it for granted. Our eyes are automatically like, bloop, just like pop-up ads and banner
Yeah.
ads and stuff. Our eyes don't even see them anymore, I feel like. And our parents are like, what's this? You know, they'll look at every banner ad and like, I'm like, don't read that, mom. Who cares? Like, get out of there. And yeah, it's so funny and so different the way we approach it. Norn, do you, if you were approached by a client and you needed to solve a creative problem on the day, how do you break that process down and how do you approach snags and feedback? And I guess, say this is your day, how would you break it down?
Well, I just wanted to respond to something Becca said first.
Oh yeah, go ahead.
Which was, you know, that term, there's 9 ways to skin a cat.
Yeah, true that.
That's like how you were saying, like different coders will come up with different solutions for the same problem. By the way, I'm working with a coder right now, and we're animating something in After Effects, but the coder has to recreate it in code, all of this animation. And I could tell, like, he's probably been through the ringer, and like, you know, for us to make something too fancy that he can't replicate. But I was like, you know what? It's going to be great because one of my best friends is a coder, and I'm going to go through this with her first. And so it's going to be really easy for you.
Just
and
people think differently. It's
Yeah.
again, I think it's beautiful in a way. Everyone's, you know, I've had to learn over the years that just because it's not my way doesn't mean it's wrong. You know, everyone has a different way of thinking. Even if we're all analytical, it's for me, I have to start with a big diagram and build it out. Someone else might be like, no, I'm going straight into the code and that's how I figure things out, as I just start tinkering away. Other people do this thing called like pseudocode, which is like literally typing out functionally.
Oh, and the collection of what you have in your mind library, which I'll get into later, but everybody has a different set of experiences and references that they're drawing from, and they will come at that problem completely differently than someone with another set. So
Yep. That's what makes them all individual.
Mhm.
But in answer to your other question, or your first question, um, if I have a day, um, I really listen to the brief, and then I actually think about all the limitations. You know, like let's say the budget is really low, then it's like, okay, I can't do a shoot, or so limitations are really great, because then you're forced to play in a sandbox.
Oh yeah.
Um,
Mhm.
Because otherwise,
and
you could just go all over it,
go
right?
bonkers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so limitations are really good. And then I I used to do this thing where I would actually go to the dictionary. It's so weird. And I would look up words
Oh, I love
that
that.
that would
Oh.
spark, and then they would, when I read the definitions, that would spark other ideas. So I try to think conceptually about things, and I draw, like what you're saying, Crystal. I draw from my experience. I usually draw from um, movies and fine art, and my life and all other things. And then I do what you do, Becca, which is I just put pen to paper and I
Mhm.
start drawing out really basic storyboards. I just draw a 16 by 9 window and just start drawing out, what this thing is. And also, Pinterest is a really great tool.
Mm.
I just, because if you do searches for images, then that usually sparks other ideas too.
Mm.
So, and then a friend of mine just showed me an alternative to Pinterest, which I could send you guys, and
Yeah.
we could post it with the link,
I love
which is
Pinterest.
really cool. It's like if you put, let's say you have an art, let's say we have an image of something you did, Crystal,
Mhm.
and then we threw it in there, it'll find a million images of something just like it.
Oh,
That's
cool.
cool.
It's
Is it
so
like
cool.
machine learning based? Do you
It's
think?
all machine learning.
Yeah.
Um,
That's
so, and then so you'll find all these other cool images like related to it. So
what
that's
do you know what's
basically
it
what I
called?
do. It's called, I can look it up right now. I think it's called like All the Same. Oh wait.
Oh,
Mm.
that's
I need
awesome.
this in my life.
Yeah, we could put it in the chat. It's called Same Energy.
Same.
I love it.
That's
Same
Same
energy.
same
I
dot energy. And
that's
it's,
really cool.
yeah, it's a really cool it's like it's an alternative to Pinterest. I mean, I still love Pinterest, because that's where you just pull reference, and it's more about the style of what you're looking for, and you just think intuitively of what feels right.
Mhm.
And then I always think of the conceptual part too. So it's all those things together.
Can you describe a little bit more about the conceptual part? Because when I took one of my first fine art classes, like deep dives, that is something that I missed out on going to pretty much a tech college. I missed out on the fine art aspect of it. It wasn't about the why, it was about how to execute.
You've
And
definitely kind of gone back to the fine art part, I feel like.
I'm clawing my way back, but I didn't start there. And the idea of starting off with that concept uh, was foreign to me at the time because it was all about execution and someone else came up with the why.
Mm.
Um,
Oh.
I'm in motion graphics, so it's it's different for you guys because the person who's coming up with the why is usually the big wig director,
Mhm.
right?
But
Motion
you can also
graphics is,
come up with your mini whys.
there you
And
go.
Yeah, the reason why you approach it a certain way is up to
mhm,
you, right?
based on that sandbox that you described, right?
I just had an assignment where they said use a line drawing in your design. That's all they said. And I was like, okay, this thing is about friendship. So I'm thinking, a line can be a connection between one person and another.
Mm.
So that was the conceptual idea.
Mm.
And so with
Norn,
that,
I love your brain.
Yeah, I
I
know. I
just
love
want
your
to say
brain
I
too.
love your.
Like
oh,
You come up with I just
a
sorry to
line
interrupt. I just
that connects.
love.
that's so sweet. And by the way, you were all in all the style frames, Becca.
Oh.
It's for that project we talked about. So it was like, okay, if it's about friendship, what are all the things you do with a friend? And one thing was, okay, you eat with a friend. You go to a
Oh.
restaurant. So like
Mhm.
in this frame, it was like, okay, well, I eat ramen and my friend eats spaghetti. and those things are lines. And the idea was that we shared a noodle that was a line, and it connected us together, even though my line was ramen and your line was spaghetti. And then there was another thought was, okay, well, we can share coffee together if we're friends. So what can be a line? So I was thinking, oh, the smoke from the coffee can lead from one person to another. And then basically in storytelling, you kind of have to build up and make the story more like have a finale at the end. And so the finale at the end was that for friendship, I was on a mountain. My friend was on another mountain. And I'm thinking, what can I use as a line? And so I was like, okay, I'm going to lasso a rope to my friend's mountain and pull her towards me. So that was the finale of the piece, and the client loved it. They ended up picking something else, but
but you had a whole story and like reason behind why.
It's fantastic.
It's beautiful. It's
it was
really
beautiful. Thank you. I mean, I was thinking, okay, what are the steps of a friendship? Like, oh, you have coffee, oh, you have a meal, oh, you maybe you go bike riding. In the rest of the story, it was like, oh, they're riding 2 bikes together, but then a breeze line makes a tandem bike, so that they're closer together. So the whole idea was just getting closer and closer and closer. And clients love that, by the way, because in my industry, there's so much of the visual of it, and it's so subjective. Like they could reject it because they don't like the color blue, or they don't like circles, or just some like with you, Becca, like it's rational, and they can't really argue about it. But in design, it's very subjective, so you can spend all this time on it and think it's great, and they can hate it.
Yeah.
Which
they
is
just
so
don't see it the same way you do.
It's so infuriating to me. I remember, I just remember this, like I used to get so pissed when people would tell me they didn't like a movie just because of somebody's face.
Yeah.
And I'm like, how does that
have anything to...
There's all these other things, all these other great things happening.
It used to drive me insane. I was like, well, I just don't like Kirsten Dunst's face. And I'm like, you're crazy. She's amazing. Like, also, even if you don't like her, I guess, it doesn't delegitimize the piece.
You can say you don't like Picasso because it looks weird, but you can appreciate why it was such a big part in art history. So I feel like that's what like we as artists do, is we're able to kind of analyze it. But with the conceptual part, that will sell it to, it'll make a client like something more if they can connect to it emotionally with a story.
Absolutely.
And then they're more forgiving about what it looks like, and it's not so subjective.
That's interesting. So that's like you're selling kind of like
it's
your strategy.
Absolutely. It's always, everything I do has a concept in it, because if it didn't, they could just reject it and say no, but it's like it helps to sell the idea.
It's like Mad Men. I think of Mad Men like,
oh, they're very well, advertising's all conceptual.
They like the stories and the pitches, and I just imagine Norn doing that. Like
that's what I do. I try to be Don Draper and Peggy Olson.
But that's the connective part.
Thing together.
You what?
Today. I almost bought a Peggy Olson what are those bobblehead things?
Like it's a bobblehead?
No, I think it's like a vinyl
pop socket, or not pop socket.
Pop socket.
Funko Pop.
That's it. Funko. I saw like a Peggy Olson she was carrying a box and smoking a cigarette.
How cute!
Oh, that's cute.
That's really cute. I mean, I love that. It is, and artwork is subjective by design.
Yes.
I mean, it just is.
Yeah.
But if you can connect to someone with the story, I can personally ignore so many like technical problems because I connect to it. I mean, a great example for me would be the film Interstellar. I think Interstellar is all right. Well,
I know you're a Christopher Nolan fan.
I'm a big Christopher Nolan fan.
I'm curious to hear what your thoughts are, Krystal.
It is one of the most emotionally touching stories to me personally. I weep every time I hear it, like everything that comes together. Like the core of it isn't about the sci-fi ideas. The core is a family and how they deal with, the choices that they make within that family. and their connection.
With the sci-fi element on top of it.
Yeah, with the sci-fi element on top of it, which is like my favorite thing.
Side
more the
note, have you seen
environment.
The Expanse? Have you watched The Expanse?
No, I know that's your show, Becca. You've been
oh my
watching
God,
that with Dave.
Krystal, if
Okay, we
you
gotta
like,
trade.
I feel like it's on Amazon, and if you
Okay.
like the emotional human element and the struggles they go through, but then the sci-fi part added on.
That's what
Realistic,
I like.
and this is realistic sci-fi. This is like, there's some things that get a little weird, but it's like, how would a ship actually turn in space? Like realistically, they have to do certain maneuvers.
Realistic
like
sci-fi is the best.
Oh, I
like
love it.
like Ad Astra a little bit.
I don't know if I've seen that.
Brad Pitt.
Yeah, well, we have to
I
do
didn't
another
see it.
movie podcast.
Sorry, I didn't. Yeah, you should check that out.
Okay, I'll add that. You need to see Interstellar because it's.
I've seen Interstellar. It's so good.
Wait, you haven't, Norn?
I
Norn
haven't.
hasn't.
Oh my goodness. Okay.
Well,
So I mean, all of the technical stuff that happens within the story, like people do complain about quantum physics and whatever, and it's like, I don't care because I only care about what happened between this father and this daughter and what their motivations are and how
I'll watch it for you, Krystal.
the heart. It's completely different than Tenet.
It's a really long movie, so just be prepared for that. But it's good. I like it.
On the subject of Christopher Nolan, I think artistry has to do with concept and thinking, but you also have to have execution. Execution is huge, and I think Christopher Nolan is one of those whose execution sometimes exceeds the conceptual. I would say
his execution is fantastic, and when he gets it,
it's at like a whole other level.
I mean, David Fincher, to me, also execution's up here and concepts maybe a little bit. Or maybe it's kind of, I don't know. I fell asleep during Mank, but I love all of his other movies.
It
was boring.
I do need. I need to see. I mean, I'm a completionist when it comes to
also who's the director of the most recent Blade Runner? What's his face?
Oh, Denis
Ridley
Villeneuve.
Scott.
I'm so
excited
to see Dune. You have no idea.
Oh my gosh, it looks so good.
I'm sold.
I want to see it in a freaking theater. I don't want to see it on my phone.
When is it coming out?
November.
Oh, we might be able to.
I feel like you have to show. You're gonna have to show your vaccination card. Going to movie theater.
I cannot wait to see anything that Denis Villeneuve makes. I will see, regardless of trailer or not.
I haven't seen the Natalie Portman movie. Is that good?
Which one?
Annihilation? That's not him.
Yeah.
I don't think it's him. It kind of has.
That's Alex Garland.
Oh, I get I get them mixed up.
I don't know if I
like it that much.
I did
I
like
love
it.
Ex Machina.
Ex Machina is great. No, Denis Villeneuve did Arrival.
I loved Arrival.
Oh yes.
And Prisoners and Enemy and
I haven't seen his early movies.
Good. He's so good.
I love Blade Runner. I
totally. Great. No. Look, I could talk about Blade Runner forever. And but I guess if
I'm old, when you said Blade Runner, I was like, oh, Ridley Scott.
Ridley Scott. Which is at the latest. So
latest. Okay.
Yeah. Which, interestingly enough, I think we all got to see the latest one together because
Blur.
Blur took us out. It was like a 10 a.m. showing of like hard sci-fi, and I was like,
right down the street.
Oh my God, it was like there. It was like the most intense thing to have happen in the middle of a day, and you come out and it's like bright light.
Oh, it was intense, but I was like, oh my goodness, this is what I want. But also, it's 10 a.m.
I loved it.
I love the original movie so much. Like when I was at Art Center, I actually did a main title for the original movie, shot it all in 16 millimeter. Yeah, and
you've been to the Bradbury Building.
Yes.
Yes, of course.
Yeah, we should all go because it's right across the street from the food place.
Central Market.
Grand Central. Yeah.
Yum.
I've only seen the outside. I haven't been inside.
Yeah,
I've been inside. You got to go inside and see the staircases.
Yeah.
Oh, is it a cool staircase?
All the architecture.
I also been really wanting to do a tour, like they do like a food tour in downtown where they take you to all like the old hotels and give history.
Oh, I want to do that.
I would do that.
We should do like a Groupon or whatever. Crystal, when you come back, we'll do like a downtown food Groupon hotel tour.
I would love to. That's a goal. for me.
That's the goal. That's the dream.
Oh, it is
right?
the dream.
Tell us your creative process.
Okay, yes. So my creative process, unlike, I'm more in line with Becca because I'm like in between you two because I don't get to come up with the why. You get to come up with the why, Norn, which is awesome. You get to tell a story. My story is already written. So I have to work within the sandbox of what that story is. So if I'm going to design a creature, that creature, usually there's already an initial design pass. Rarely will get the opportunity to completely redo it or do my own. But usually there's like at least a painting or something. That story will come tell me exactly what this creature's motivations are, what it's doing, how long it's been alive, what does it eat, what does it do, what does it see,
Wow.
what is it,
How does it walk?
how does it walk, what kind of,
you get that granular into it. That's so cool. That's really fascinating.
I mean, they have to kind of, I mean, of course I'm filling in the gaps with my own
Because that
ideas.
That's what actors do that.
the anatomy of like how you build something, right? Like how they're shaped is based on their
exactly
how they would actually function in real life, right?
I mean, if that is important to the story, they will bring up what the gravity's like on their planet and, you know, how will that skeleton look in
That's
that case.
so cool.
Love that.
And
That's
I have
so
to,
cool.
I have to think about that stuff because then that will make the design make sense or like the reasons, story reasons. It's why things are like the way they are. Of course, there are sometimes people just want things because it's cool. And then I have to rationalize it with my own ideas on why this thing is like this. You know, there was the famous design of the creature in Star Trek, and people got really upset at the idea that this red creature was in an icy world. But Neville Page, the designer on that, he's the creature designer on that, his thought process was incredibly interesting because when you think about the spectral register of red in a blue environment, the red would disappear.
Oh my God.
So to be a hunter within that environment,
he's a chameleon.
He chose to make that skin red because underneath the blue spectrum, it would neutralize.
I think
that's so fascinating.
Probably what you bring to the table, Krystal, is all the thinking that goes behind. Because maybe another modeler would just copy the drawing verbatim, but you're going beyond that.
Beyond that, yeah.
Well, it's because I'm it's because I'm a big old nerd and I love zoology and I love biology.
Again, what sets you apart?
Yeah.
Big old, I mean, if there's a nerd battle, we could have a nerd battle about it.
You would win.
When it comes to creatures, that's what I do. So if I'm going to get a task like that, I would probably get a concept. I would spend a couple hours just looking at reference and gathering reference if they hadn't already gathered reference packs for me. Sometimes companies do that. At Weta, they give me reference packs. At another company I work for, I'm responsible for that. So I will, no matter what, I will always pull my own and do the Pinterest thing, and then I'll gather everything, put it up on like PureRef or another program that you can just collage all of your references at once.
PureRef.
Yeah, PureRef. It's free. It's fantastic. And you can just bring in all your images, drag them all on, arrange them the way you want. Just kind of
see it all laid out.
Exactly. And you can say like, here's my PureRef pack for just eyes. Here's my PureRef pack for like nails and claws. Here's my PureRef pack for the skin. For the kinds of things in nature that will maybe design the surface area of the skin, or where the hard stuff versus soft stuff.
Have you always done that virtually? Like, have you ever done that like in a physical form where you're like, I'm gonna lay out all my, because I guess you've been doing this in a digital space for so long. It's not like,
yeah, I started in the digital space that the practical part doesn't come into it because it's just like so much more time to print something out or get.
Yeah, for it, you're saving trees.
You don't need to do that.
Yeah, and saving trees, but I mean, that is a romantic idea. I think I would have done that if
I was just like thinking of like, oh, that would be so cool to have all these like collections of eyes and collections of like whatever.
Oh yeah, the old the practical people do that much more because they're actually working on physical medium. So if there's someone doing sculpting or hairpinning or maquettes or, painting, they would have physical stuff usually.
It's like Stan Winston's Creature Shop, kind of. Am I
Mhm.
getting that name right?
Yeah, Stan Winston. Stan Winston, the ILM people, the Weta Workshop, Legacy Effects, Spectral Motion, and Amalgamated Dynamics. All of those guys.
Those, like videos of their stuff, their shops is like so cool.
I do feel like
awesome.
Your process is similar to mine in that you're going through Pinterest and finding a lot of reference.
Yeah, because I need to just like get whatever it is
like
in my head, even if on top of the concept
intuitive.
Alone, I will get inspired by various things in nature. And then my own, because I'm a big nerd, I will go out and look at nature documentaries and think about nature and observe and go to zoos and aquariums and
amazing
books about it. And then all of that information biologically, I can try to make sense of something because, I know that if you think about like, what is that movie? The Emily Blunt movie, A Quiet Place. What kind, like how big are the cochlea of again, we're going to bring up cochleas.
You love cochleas.
I love a cochlea. How big are the cochleas of a creature that's completely blind and only relies on sound?
Huge.
Enormous, because they need to be able to hear any little.
Yeah.
So like form follows function. So that's like the number one rule of a creature designer. Form is going to follow function. And then I'm also usually if there is a concept, like something that I have to get right is what is cool about this concept? Because I know this concept artist probably had to throw something together super quick. And then it's my job to fully realize it in 3D and in the space where the actors are. So I have to also figure out kind of like the direction of where the skin and the detailing is going to go and how are the eyes going to work and how, how is this thing going to move and interact? And if it's going to move in a way that like bones might like clash, I need to redesign the skeleton.
You're using the
bit.
Plates. I'm assuming you're using the plates as reference, right? Of like how this model is going to, I guess.
Not the
plate.
Reference
to this
concept art.
Maybe scale only. So if they wanted me to put it in a shot for concept reasons, I would probably put it in there as like a style frame, basically to just show like,
how,
will
like
this
scale?
Yeah, will this sell the idea that they want within a key shop?
Krystal, I want to know about your creative process. Like, for example, with the sculpture that you have behind you. Maybe describe it because we're all audio.
Yes. So so this is an audio medium. Yeah. So I mean, similar to my design process at work, the conceptual part is all the same, but the execution is different. Whereas I have a different set of restrictions personally than I would in a production pipeline. So in a production pipeline, I am restricted to making my piece, my character has to be in a particular pose for ideal rigging and binding. And it can't be dynamic until it's rigged, or I'm doing some really quick quick concept. I could pose it myself, but usually I don't do that. And then we have to put it through the pipeline and someone else poses it. Now at home, when I do sculptures, like I have it's a bronze sculpture that was all designed in 3D of 2 animal figures. I have no restrictions when it comes to like topology or pose, because I'm in control of all of it, just as if I would be sculpting in clay. So I don't have to model it in a T pose or an A pose or a completely symmetrical. Like I'll start out symmetrically and then I will.
What's a T pose, Krystal, for those who are listening?
Well, a T pose is when your character is completely symmetrical, your arms are out and you are standing at a T. And that will make it so rigging will have an easier time lining up joints digitally. And then after they've put the bones in and weighted it properly, then it will deform properly when animation gets their controls in, and they can move the arms and everything, and the legs, and everything will move in a
I just
natural
want
way.
everyone to know that Krystal's like actually moving her whole body through this whole she's describing everything.
Yep, it's the way that I'm gonna describe it to me and myself. I'm doing some chicken wings.
But I love the inspiration you had behind that piece. It was from a fine art reference.
Yeah, I guess we can post a link to it on our Instagram or something.
Totally.
But on the episode, but it's two figures. One is a dog and one is a springbok, and the dog is devouring the springbok. And for me, I was really inspired by Rape of the Sabine Women, which is a sculpture that I saw in Italy that it's one of the most incredible marble sculptures, just these three figures entwined, and everything is spiraling up in what is called like a Bernini spiral, where when I design my pieces that are going to be in 3D, I'm thinking about every single angle. So like an illustrator, I want all my lines to be really pretty and I want my silhouette to read. But when you're in 3D, every single silhouette has to read from whatever angle you view it in.
That's crazy.
So if you are following the line of action on this figure, you will notice that it is a spiral that's spiraling up into a point. And that includes the eye line of the final creature. So my eye lines are going to be following that line as well as the spine. And if you do that, and that's one of the things I teach a lot, if you do that, you will have much more of you'll be in a very good place to have every angle work silhouette wise and read the way you want. Because you will have a direction no matter where you're looking.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's what I mean. And as far as creative process, I mean, it's just like nature, film, books, fine art, observation, travel.
Do you feel like you have different I'm assuming you have different limitations when you're dealing with practical versus 3D space though, right? Because you're actually dealing with physical elements, I would assume, right? There's different types of challenges. So you have more creativity with your personal projects, but there's probably some additional, I would assume, like
if I'm going to bring it out physically and print it, that's a whole thing. So I kind of had to make choices, and I probably made more because I was ignorant. I made a lot more bold choices than someone who is a seasoned sculptor who makes bronzes would make. I made choices based on what I wanted versus what would be a pain in the ass. And I made two pieces that apparently were a huge pain in the ass, and the people who helped me were amazing about it, but they were like, wow, I wouldn't have done this myself because
I feel
this is painful.
Wasn't there a whole video of this process that we can put in our...
I have a photo essay on ArtStation.
Right. I saw that video. It's really great.
You can see the process.
Photo essay?
It was just photos.
Okay.
A series of photos showing the process step by step, because you have to do, it's a whole thing you have to do. First, you have to finish your design and be happy with it. Then you have to practically think about what that scale is going to be. Somebody preps it for 3D printing.
It's all designed in 3D, right? Like what program we're using?
In ZBrush. So I'm able to design it all in ZBrush. And then in Maya, I can see scale and I can see cameras, and I can even light it and put materials on it to see what it might look like in real life.
That's cool. Yeah.
And
like a preview.
Yeah. And then I was able to show what kind of patina I wanted to my to my foundry person. And that helped give them an idea of what I wanted. And then I basically took it, somebody helped prep it for print, which there's a whole science to that. It's a whole thing. I could go into it later, but it's a whole thing. They got it printed. All of those pieces were separate and keyed. Those pieces had to be made into a mold. And then we needed to make wax casts out of that mold. Then the wax needed to be cleaned. Then they put another mold on top of the wax, and then they pour the hot bronze into it where the wax melts out. And that mold is broken. And then a million years of sanding and Dremels and sandblasting, and then more sanding until
To
you're
smooth
happy. And then you weld it all together, sand all that down, do a bunch of manicures,
okay, so a lot of okay, that makes sense. So it is welded together, because I was like looking at it because there's so many intricate pieces.
Yeah, there's pieces that are welded together, and I know this isn't a visual medium, but you can see this is one of the failed wax casts that I took home. So this is like,
oh, look at that. Oh, it's hollow.
That's to save on material.
But this is just the
Oh.
cast. This isn't the final. This isn't the final.
Yeah, this is one of the failed
Like
casts.
a test.
So if you see these ears got messed up, those ears kind of had to be done separately, because the way the mold was done, it was more for a resin cast and not a soft wax, because this will just melt.
That's awesome.
So there's like, yeah,
I love it. I'm just so fascinated, because I don't. That's not my job. Like, I'm not an artist. It's just
that's
really
like the
cool.
craftsmanship part of it.
Yeah.
I respect craftsmen so much because of how much work this was. So much work and it's like I get it, like, as a 3D artist, you can get away with just having everything digitally, and it's a huge amount of work to get it in the real world, especially if you have figurative art versus you've seen like large abstract pieces that are bronze. That's so much more simple to, even if it's large scale, to make in the real world, because you can fudge a lot of the details, whereas
you can get away with it. Yeah,
you can't when it's smaller.
You can't when it's small.
It's more real. It's a depiction of something that's like real, like a real animal.
Yeah, and the realism is like the killer, because if my anatomy doesn't flow and the surface doesn't blend perfectly to the rest of him, it's not
then it doesn't work. So what?
Tons of stuff. And then there's patina after the bronze, and then I had to get a source marble and then get that installed and have
That's so cool.
Yeah, it was a whole thing.
So do you believe that every work of art you do is a self-portrait?
I know you believe that, Norn.
And that's why I asked the question.
Oh, I like that's awesome.
No, it's a real thing. That's what everybody says.
I love that you think that. I think it could be interpreted that way. And I think half of art is the interpretation of the audience.
Oh, so you don't think it's an interpretation of the self?
I think it is, if you want it to be.
Yeah.
And I think you can
oh, go ahead.
You can easily make the argument that it is.
So I always thought, like, after seeing that piece that we're going to show on Instagram, that it's Krystal being devoured by something. But I think it might, whatever it is, it's like devoured by art, by passion, by by food.
Norn's telling stories like this.
No, you're right. So it is an audience interpretation.
That's so funny that you think that the Springbok is me, because I thought you meant that the dog was me.
No, you are the Springbok for sure.
Wow.
It's a little test print of that guy.
That's so cool.
No, that's you. You're like the vulnerable Springbok that's so elegant, being devoured by her passion or something.
Norn makes it all sound beautiful. It's like the story behind it.
I like it. You can
can't
also
say that about code, but
you
could be both.
You can make
both.
But I think what's interesting is I named it cycle, which means it could be not just something being devoured, but also something coming out of something else.
Devouring. So you're
reborn.
Both.
Being reborn. It's leaving.
See, it
so
is
it's coming
you.
Out of.
Krystal thinks this is hilarious.
Norn.
I love that. I love your interpretation. Look, bring it on, because again, that is half the art.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Becca, when you make something, I will interpret it in some other cuckoo way for you.
But like your process, Becca, like the process of being able to have a user experience, nobody else is going to make it the way you did it.
Yeah.
And
I have
so-
my stamp on it, my thought process, my design on it.
It's your
yeah, so
individual stamp.
Exactly. And I was also thinking too, because I don't get aside from just brainstorming and trying to think creatively or analytically at work, I was like, I express myself through my style too. I think because I am really a left and right brain. I would say I'm definitely more on the science, mathematics side of thing, but I do have a big creative part of me, and I wouldn't be who I am if I didn't have those elements mixed in my life.
You have this amazing aesthetic eye,
Thank you.
which drew me to you.
Oh, likewise.
So, I mean, you can see it in the way you dress, the way you present yourself, the way your house
the way your room looks.
My room.
Yeah.
The way my Animal Crossing looks. I'm just kidding.
Yes.
You have the most crazy you have definitely the most crazy Animal Crossings.
What an inspiration to me
in
the darkest time.
That's my mind. Like I'm a very creative person. I even though I am very analytical, it has to feel right. It has to visually look right to me. Like I said, I'm a visual learner. And so I like the bright colors. I like the different textures and textiles and figuring out how those things go together. Maybe how I put them together, there's some analytical thinking around it, but it is just a feeling.
It's self-expression.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I think a lot of it's probably intuitive.
Mm-hmm. It is. Yep.
And that's, I mean, I want to leave with one more question for you all and this is a great segue that you brought, Becca, was basically, how do you stay motivated for personal creative projects? Like, what will drive you to continue to do that? And how will you, as an artist, and we were all creative people, how do you keep that up personally, outside of like, this is your paycheck and your day job?
I have a kind of a weird answer, and it's not really, I'm not really driven by creativity. I would say I am a very goal-oriented person, so I think things I do are always driven by that drive to reach a goal. But a lot of the things I choose to pick in my own personal time is creative. So even if it's like, oh, I'm going to garden, which is a creative thing, or I'm going to go roller skate, or I'm going to decorate, I'm going to, kind of organize and make it look aesthetically pleasing. I'm doing it because there's a goal, and I'm doing it because I will feel good once I accomplish it, but it itself is kind of a creative thing. I don't know.
You're probably a list maker.
Oh, I am.
Oh, Norn.
You can just check it off.
Such a list maker.
Yeah, of course you are.
It's my favorite. So
oh my God.
That's
here's my mind right here.
Oh wait, I have some. We're all showing our lists.
I got lists on lists on lists.
Oh my God.
On lists.
This is freaking hilarious.
We got lists. I love a list. I totally agree
love
with
it.
you,
We're
Becca.
just like the production ladies, they love their plaid, or we love our lists.
Is a list a female thing? I feel like I don't
Not
know.
sure. Jury's out. Hey, male listeners, how about you email us and let us know? Do you make lists?
And send us your lists.
Send us your
Norn,
lists.
Norn wants to read your list.
Norn wants to read your boy lists.
I want to read your weird lists.
She wants your F, Marry, Kill list.
FMK list, yeah.
Norn is always trying to get us to play FMK, and
because it's the best game ever.
Well, it's fantastic until you bring the worst possible combinations together, and they're all people that we actually know, and we have no idea.
But that's what makes it
say.
fun. And the funny thing about Becca is when we play, she's like, I don't want to kill anybody, and I'm just like, you're not really killing anybody.
Yeah, but you always try to find the absolute
worst.
You think, like, all people that are terrible, or all people that
I mean that's the goal.
Or people that maybe some of us actually do want to do one of those three things too.
Even better. The easy way into this is just to pick celebrities.
That is
Because
that's
nobody
usually
knows
how I've played
them.
it in the past. But
Dude, we'll play it like that. I don't care. They don't know me. But you
Yeah.
bring
so
in.
but that's why it makes it easy because there's
Well,
like
see,
no
you can
stake
do.
in the game.
Well, we'll just do one,
All right.
This is
and
gonna
they'll
be
But wait, let's
adapted.
answer these questions first,
Yeah.
and then we'll do
Yeah.
one.
Oh,
And then we'll do
okay,
one.
okay.
Okay, Norn, tell me what you do to stay motivated for your personal creative projects.
I do so much. I can't even like.
We're
I'm
part of a movie
bursting.
club together.
Yes, I'm
Kind
bursting
of.
at the seams. Like I had a spring break with my son last week, and he was in camp for 2.5 hours. I was like, what can I do in those 2.5 hours every day? And by the way, timelines are a really good creative motivator because you only have 2.5 hours to do something. And for me, I was like, okay, I'm making a documentary about my dad, a documentary short. Um, so it's using like all the stuff I love about movies and storytelling skills, design. I wrote a script in 2.5 hours about my dad, but it's also healing stuff with my family. So it's also like a psychological thing. So I'm doing that. I make a lot of clothes. You can't see it now, but I'm actually wearing something that I made.
I was gonna say I love that pattern.
Beautiful.
So I bought all this fabric from Etsy that was vintage, and it came back and it was these tiny squares of fabric. And I was like, what am I going to do with these tiny? So I just sewed them all together like a patchwork.
I love it.
And
amazing.
recently I've been painting because I got this like painting set, and then I was like, this is how clueless I've been, that I didn't know that I can mix all these colors. And I realized, hey, I know about color theory. I know how I can mix these because I'm all about color. And now it just clicked after all these years that I can mix these crazy colors and make these crazy color combinations. Awesome. And I wish it clicked when I was in college because I had a color theory class where you had to do that, but I was so clueless. So now I'm painting, and to me, it's as important as exercise to my mental health. I have to create things. I have to make things, and I feel like other people have that need too, because it just makes you happy. Because otherwise, I get into this depression state if I don't exercise and I don't create things.
I totally agree with you.
I'll bet you're the same.
It's therapeutic. I was just thinking about like one thing I didn't think of or say aside from like the goal oriented. It's therapeutic. Like I can kind of just, like you're saying, Norn, it's intuitive, but you can go to this place where it's just like you can meditate in a way.
Yeah, it's meditative.
If it's very meditative, and like I love arts and crafts, and I just love I don't know, something about it. It just feels calming.
To me, nature is also an additional thing on top of that. Like if I see flowers blooming, it's spring now.
Beauty. Yeah.
It just lifts my spirits. I mean, I have a death thumb. Like I can't grow anything to save my life. Everything dies. But the things that actually live and I can see, like the flowers blooming, it just makes me so happy mentally.
Absolutely. I mean, I totally agree with all of that. And I have to have that therapy. I mean, I fill my time with so much stuff. Like
you have to, right?
I have to. Like I've been doing these personal bronze projects. I do personal digital projects. I'm doing this podcast. We're all doing this podcast. We're we have a movie club, Norn. Which we need to get back into.
We need to get back. We need to start it again.
Yes, we do. I need to. I've been going to guitar class recently.
Really? Oh, good for you.
I've been learning Jimi Hendrix, Wind Cries Mary.
That's awesome.
I just got the solo yesterday, so
you'll have to change up our intro and
that's right.
Just do that. Just do that solo instead.
By the way, Krystal is the one who did the intro for our podcast. I don't know if anyone knows that, but
whenever I hear that riff, now I've heard it so many times. It kind of what's that positive thing in your brain that
dopamine?
Yeah, it just
same here. I like editing it because when you edit, it's kind of, sometimes it can be a little annoying because you hear the same thing. You have to listen to people's
Mhm.
voices again or the same conversation again. But I like seriously love listening to your audio
Oh,
track.
thank
It's
you
just like,
guys.
It gives me the same dopamine rush that when I used to hear that Sex in the City main title,
dun, 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 dun.
like automatically get
she's
happy.
comparing your music to Sex and the City intro. That's pretty awesome.
You know what? I'm okay with it. And just real quick, another thing I would recommend to stay motivated is, for me as an analytical person, I do love those self-help books, and I love like a Mel Robbins 5-second rule, which is you do something before your subconscious puts a stop to it. So you just 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and you go.
I've read that book.
It's great. Eat the frog, which is like do the hardest thing first, and then all this stuff on your list, the rest of your list is going to be easy.
I do that. Yeah.
You told me that, Krystal, and I wrote it on a Post-it and I put it on my computer.
Oh, that's amazing. That's I mean,
awesome.
it's
sucks.
such a
It's hard
good.
getting started, but once you do it, then you're like, okay, I did
Yeah,
it.
once you've eaten your frog, everything's easy.
It makes it so much easier. And I mean, I know that discipline is difficult when it comes to being an artist, but if you're a working artist, discipline is essential to get your goals done.
Very, because you can procrastinate forever.
You can, and like time management's part of it. And again, I'm going to bring up Elizabeth Gilbert's Big Magic again. She does mention like, oh, I don't know how to find time for my art. I don't know how to like manage. I have a family. I have a job. I have kids. I have all this other stuff I have to do, these obligations. And she's just like, well, then how do married people find time for affairs? They make the time.
You can find time for anything.
Make out with your art under the stairs real quick. You know, like you can find the time.
That's hilarious.
I love that.
You can do it. You can do it. It's what's important to you, and busy is a choice.
You're right. I need to work on my dad's documentary.
I wasn't trying to guilt you.
No, I do need to do it.
It's easy to procrastinate.
Well, it's been a great talk. Thank you guys so much for sharing your creative process. I'm going to leave us with one more quote from Elizabeth Gilbert's Big Magic. Please read the book if you haven't, or listen to it, or she's amazing. Even the audiobook is great because she narrates the whole thing. But she has this quote that says, "Creativity is sacred, and it is not sacred. What we make matters enormously and doesn't matter at all. We toil alone, and we are accompanied by spirits. We are terrified, and we are brave. Art is a crushing chore and a wonderful privilege. Only when we are at our most playful can divinity finally get serious with us. Make space for all these paradoxes to be equally true inside your soul, and I promise you can make anything. So please calm down now and get back to work, okay? The treasures that are hidden inside you are hoping that you will say yes."
Oh, that's so lovely.
That's awesome. I love that.
That's a perfect quote.
All right, everyone. Thanks so much. We'll talk soon. Lips out. Bye.
Lips out. Bye.
You can email us at ladiesinprodpodcast@gmail.com with your questions. Follow us on Instagram at ladiesinprodpodcast to learn more about us. And please subscribe and share our episodes. Thanks for listening. Lips out.